Hi, good evening, and welcome to today's AMA of GitHub Externship. Today we have with us Andrew Bastin from Hoppscotch. So I'd just like to invite him. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Hi. So I'm good. Yeah, it's really awesome to be here. Yeah, and we have seen a lot of awesome proposals from the GitHub Externship partners, students, and but I we have heard a lot of common questions, and I think this is like the best opportunity to address most of them. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to this thing. Yeah.
Yes, sure, sure. Definitely looking to have a great conversation with you as we'll be going through the ins and out of what externship is about, perspective to your organization, Hopscotch, and what you'd be offering to the students and what students do get. So we'll be covering that all. So before I begin, Andrew, we have been receiving a great amount of responses from the participants. So if you do have any queries, if you do have any points to put up, do feel free to put that up. But before
Sure.
that, yeah. So if you could just give a brief about yourself and Hopscotch, and then we could set the tone and begin with the entire city.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm just gonna start sharing my screen. Just give me a sec. Hey, share screen. Okay. Ooh, okay. So, yeah. First of all, to the people who are here, welcome to the AMA session thingy. And also, if you have decided Hopscotch as the organization you're going to be contributing to for GitHub Externship, thank you for that. That means a lot to us. And the overwhelming amount of response from you guys is actually, is actually been a very positive thing for our team. So just speaking about myself, so I am Andrew, and like you guys, like most of the people who are applying for externship, I'm also a student. I am a computer science student, but I am in Canada right now in a city called Thunder Bay. Doing my, I just finished my second year of bachelor's in computer science, and two more to go. And I think I can kind of be a person that you guys can be related to, and yeah, it kind of shows like you like whatever kind of person you are. Well, it's not just about like your studies or something. It's like if you have experience, you can actually build something great. So enough about me. Let's get into what is hopscotch for the people who don't know. So Hoppscotch is an open source. We call it an open source API development ecosystem. But that's like for like a one sentence description. But we are not. But for the people and for the space we have here, we can elaborate on it a little bit more. So Hopscotch is an API request builder currently, which means you can build API requests and test them. And a unique thing about Hopscotch is that everything happens in the browser because, well, if you're using APIs, most probably you are working with the web. You'll most probably be using web technologies. So it made sense to use browsers because, well, everything is in the browser. And it is a collaborative environment. This is something we are working on right now. Just the last weekend, we released Teams in a early access beta version, and and that is something we are working on. A place to collaborate on making APIs for to empower teams, and we are also working on making Hopscotch a way of documenting your APIs. So you can document your APIs on Hopscotch and share it with the world, so other people can use your APIs. And also, another thing is again, this kind of goes with the web aspect of Hopscotch is to give a way to people to share APIs. So I think one example for that is I have actually seen several research papers related to cybersecurity and stuff. There was actually one notable paper which revealed some issues with Google's Firebase, and they used Hoppscotch to. They just basically put a link in Hoppscotch. You can actually generate a link of a API request, and you can just share it with people, and people can see, okay, that this API has this issue for this kind of request just from that one URL. And that's the kind of magical experience we're trying to work on. So next, the team. So we are currently a two-man army. So the founder of the project is Elias. He is a person who's working in Kerala. He's from Kerala, and he is the lead designer. So all the design aspect of Hoppscotch is something that Elias deals with. So you can also find his GitHub and Twitter over here. He's kind of popular over there. And then there's me. I kind of work on the behind the scenes stuff. So everything which happens after the UI, which means when you click the send button, that's a Elias thing. And whatever happens after the send button till you get the request is my thing. It's kind of the way we kind of organize. It's kind of like, what do you say? It's a synergy. It's kind of the thing. It's like a chemistry between us of sorts, in that Elias does the designing, I do the development, and we just work together. And it has worked out good so far. Yeah, and then the beginnings of Hoppscotch. So the beginnings start with Elias, who just finished his bachelor's in software engineering in Kerala, and he got hired by a small startup in Kerala who make websites. And what happened was Elias couldn't find. Elias had to work with the REST APIs. He had to get some REST APIs from the web, and he had to run. He had to build the requests and test it out. So people usually use tools like Postman for it. But the problem was Elias had a really old computer at that time. And the problem with that was Postman is for people who have used Postman, they will know that Postman is a really, let's say, an intensive application due to its design and the choices it took. It's a really intense application that mostly a lot of old computers can't run. So he thought, since REST APIs are on the web, why not have a browser-based solution for building REST APIs or REST APIs? And that's when he came to design what was then called Postwoman. It's kind of a play on the word on the name of Postman. And he built it actually overnight. He came up with the design in the morning, he coded it overnight, and then he released an initial version. This is how it looks like. This is how the initial version looks like. And he released the initial version. He wrote an article in dev.to, and that article actually went viral of sorts. It's one of the most read articles in dev.to. And that's how people came to know about the project. And people thought, yeah, that makes sense. And hence the project went viral. How viral? We actually went trending #1 globally in GitHub for a week or so. It was that viral. And well, the day he published the article, I think I was like one of the first readers of it. I came to the article, and that's I was like, okay, I can contribute something to this, because it was like really basic at that time. And I started contributing to it, and then I started contributing to it more and more and more. Then I started actually giving out pull requests every day, a pull request every day for a month. It's kind of a big feat. One pull request every day for a month. So that's almost 31 pull requests in a month. And eventually it kind of became my project too. And Leos took me in and was like, okay, let's build something together. So, okay, now fast forwarding to the current time. We have had 132 total contributors to the project. I'm talking about, by these stats, I'm talking about the main Hoppscotch project, because we have several projects under the organization, But we're talking about the main project, the main Hoppscotch repository. We have 132 total contributors, 6 projects under the organization, as I said. And just last week, I think just 3-4 days back, we hit 29,000 stars. So that's 1,000 more to 30. But it's kind of a big feat because that kind of makes it that like by star ranks, we are like about 240th position in entirety of GitHub, which, among a million repositories, being like the 241 is crazy. And as of I made the slide, we have about 250,000 plus users. This is all-time users, and from the initial REST support, Hoppscotch has since from the input of the community itself built additional support for GraphQL and real-time technologies. So real-time technologies is like WebSocket, Socket.io, MQTT, and stuff like that. So actually, from the input of the community and from our vision of Hoppscotch, we actually have a philosophy. And I know whenever we talk about the project, we also talk about the philosophy because the philosophy of Hoppscotch is really important to us. And we want everyone who works in the project to know that this is something we are striving for, because this is like the general aim of the project. Whenever we are in doubt, we always look into the philosophy and make sure it upholds that. So the first one is be inclusive. We want Hoppscotch to be as frictionless as possible, which means, as I said before, at maximum, you don't need to install anything. You don't need to work on anything as much as possible. And it's not just on like that installation phase or something. We also want it to be available everywhere. So you can use Hoppscotch because it's a web app. It's a normal web app. You can use it on your phone. You can use it on your PC or whatever it is, as long as it has a browser. I have seen, so there was one person who actually reached out to me who actually for funds ran Hoppscotch in their Xbox, and that's actually really funny. But that's kind of the thing, be able to run anywhere. And then it's to be integrated. So this is something we are striving towards, is to make Hoppscotch a part of every aspect of API development. It's not just building an API or testing an API. It is, we think of it as from ever since I had the thought of making an API to actually having a final working API or an integration of the API, we want to help you in every step of the way. We have actually added some features for that. For example, if you make a request, Hoppscotch can actually generate the request code for you. So you can just copy paste our code, test your request in Hoppscotch with its awesome UI, and then you can just say generate code, and it'll generate the code, which you can just copy paste. We have language support for like 16, 20 languages. That all of that comes from the community, by the way, and that's kind of the thing we are working towards. And then the open source heart. So a lot of the things what made Hoppscotch a success is credited to the open source community. As I said, for example, we talked about the code generation feature. All of the code generation features, except the initial 4, which is the JavaScript ones, are built by the community, and it is actually maintained by the community as well. And that's kind of this partnership we expect from the open source community, the users of Hoppscotch itself. And there are a lot of the users of Hoppscotch are really diverse. We have seen people with disabilities using Hoppscotch, and we have seen people with various different problems using Hoppscotch, and we want to hear everyone's voice and give people the tools and the framework to actually contribute to Hoppscotch, because it can make their lives easier as well. So here are some things we are working on right now. So Hoppscotch, these are kind of the main kind of projects we are working on. What I and Liz are working on right now, these are the things we want to get done soon. So one thing is Teams. So Teams is basically, as I said, it's a feature designed to let people contribute, work together. So a group of people, for example, you might be in a company and you have a web development team, and your web development team has to figure out APIs, and you had to share it and collaborate with other people on building those APIs. That's what Teams is about, to help people share APIs really easily within Teams. And then we are working on workspaces. So workspaces is kind of the next step which you're working on. Workspaces is basically, you can think, it's a multitasking hopscotch basically. So currently you can just work at one request at a time or look at one request at a time. But we want to actually allow support for people to work on multiple things at a time in Hoppscotch. So you can maybe, for example, refer to a request and then refer to a request in like another workspace, and then come back to the workspace you're currently working on, and easily work on that. And then we're also working on Hoppscotch natively for native support for Hoppscotch. By native, I mean we want to make Hoppscotch run on PCs as an app as well, for the option to give the people that option if they want it. But of course, web is our main priority, and it will continue to be. It's just we also want people to have that support for native. So to the people who have not exactly understood the code base or haven't still taken a peek at it, this is kind of the things we are tech stack we are actually using in Hoppscotch. So Hoppscotch is by itself a Nuxt.js application. We do not use any server-side rendering right now. Maybe that's something we are working on in the future, but we haven't seen any use for it right now. But Nuxt.js is our application framework. So that means we are using Vue.js as well through Nuxt. And for styling, so this is kind of the latest things, we use Tailwind CSS to help us style stuff. We use, for example, Tailwind's theming system for the awesome Hoppscotch themes. And then we use SCSS for our styling sets. And in the backend, backend is something which we haven't open source right now. It's kind of related to Teams. We are still working on it, and there are some nits we had to fix. The backend is powered by Nest.js, and we have a TypeScript backend, so you code in TypeScript. We also, Hoppscotch uses Firebase really flexibly. We use Firebase for a user syncing feature, and we use Firebase for authentication. And then we use Apollo to talk to the backend, the Nest.js backend, because the Nest.js backend actually hosts a GraphQL server. So we talk to the backend by GraphQL. Also, another thing I kind of left out is the front end. In the front end, you can use both JavaScript and TypeScript. So we just recently added TypeScript support for the front end. So it's still a work in progress, but we do encourage, so for any people who want to contribute in the project, if you have TypeScript knowledge, that would be awesome. Because that's kind of the direction we are trying to go forward. But even if you don't, if you work on JavaScript, that's fine. At the end, it's all about just having good code working. So we said we have 6 projects under our organization. Out of the 6 projects, kind of the main projects right now in terms of the organization is, first is the Hoppscotch, of course, the main web app. And then we have the Hoppscotch extension. So the Hoppscotch extension is the browser extension, which you can use with Hoppscotch to actually kind of get over some restrictions that the browsers provide. So it makes it actually easier for people to request. You can use Hoppscotch without it, but there are some restrictions. Like it's really tiny stuff, but the extension gets rid of that. And then we have documentation generator, the Hop.gen. This is also a completely community-driven project. So we have made it official, but this is something we are looking for people to work on. And then there's Proxyscotch, which is the proxy server. So you can either use the extension or Proxyscotch, depending on your tastes. uh, as your proxy system. And Proxyscotch basically routes, so you can connect your Hoppscotch app to a Proxyscotch instance, and you can actually route requests with that to kind of get rid of the restrictions that the browsers put. So that's about it. And I hope through these slides you guys got a clear understanding of what we are looking for on the project. And yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. That was a pretty elaborative and well constructed info about what the entire hopscotch is all about, as well as your
Yeah.
brief introduction. So, while we have understood what the project is, but there are two few questions which are coming up from the audience, as well as a few questions that we do usually have if students are to apply. Is that, let's say we have now understood what the project is all about, but what is the scope of the project while in terms of a student's perspective for the 3 month tenure, or because currently they are looking only forward to the 3 month, maybe they would be contributing later on, but if they are contributing for the next 3 months, what is the scope that they are looking forward to?
Okay. So the one thing I think it's kind of interesting in terms of hopscotch is we do not exactly have a kind of a goal for saying like, okay, what are we going to be doing in the next 3 months? Because we kind of again, as I said, it's just two people work on the project right now, so we don't exactly have time frames of how long things can take, because sometimes things can take a longer time. So what we are not expecting too much from the externship participants, but if you guys want to work on a feature, so we have seen a lot of requests for working on the mock server. So make sure that if you are working on the mock server, for example, to kind of give us a clear time frame of what you're planning to do, because it is kind of going to be it's a bigger feature to implement. What do you say? Yeah, the mock server system. So we have given some suggestions, but we want the externship participants to not just think about what we suggest, as that's kind of something we have seen. We want people to actually explore and see okay, what they can contribute to Hopscotch, and it could be something small. Like, for example, I think you will have a good chance of being accepted by Hopscotch if you could work on bugs. Uh, it's not just about being a bombastic proposal, like some people actually kind of focus on that. It's not about like the depth of your proposal. It's about the things you are bringing in. So if for example, if people are working on documentation, there's a you can work on Hopscotch. We might take you. We might if you want to work on fixing bugs, you are really good at the QA stuff. We can take you. These are kind of the stuff which gets ignored, and we want to let people know that this is also a thing you should can take. And these are stuff, the QA stuff and all are something you can do really easily over the 3 month span. So compared to something like building a feature or something. And but whatever you choose, so you guys can contact to us. We can kind of cut down the scope in case it's going really big. And for some features, if we kind of think, okay, within the 3 month span, something can be built, but maybe it gets complex, we might take in multiple people for the same feature request. So, for example, the mock server stuff, it can get a little bit complicated, especially to think about in Hopscotch scale. It can be a little bit complicated for someone to do in 3 months. So we might actually take multiple people to work on multiple aspects of the mock server system, and let them collaborate on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that does help actually by specifying that lots of profiles are up for grabs if the students work precisely and actually know what they would be doing and do have an idea what they want to
Yeah.
do. Definitely,
Yeah.
there are lots.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Like, I want like not just a proposal. I want people who submit the proposals to not just think within our proposal document. So we have a proposal template document and kind of an externship guide in our Hoppscotch repo. It's there in the root folder. So we don't want people to just think of like the ideas we are giving, because we are just giving out we are just giving you out suggestions, and not everyone is the same as us. And with the time frame we're working on, we want you guys to think creatively, think of different things. Because one of the things you are going to be seeing when you're working on Hoppscotch is the people working on Hoppscotch. So if I select you for Hoppscotch, you will be working with the level of responsibility as a team lead. Compared to other projects, as I said, Hopscotch is a small team. We are just two people, so you will be having a lot of responsibility, and we expect you to just communicate with us about your level and what can you do, and give proposals according to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as we are running out of time, I'll quickly just take a few couple of questions which the
Yeah.
students have. So, one of the student is asking, could you please let us know about the proposal structure? Is there any particular format that we have to follow?
Okay, so I would direct you towards two things. So one thing is, if you open the Hoppscotch repository on GitHub, on the root folder itself, there should be a file called GitHub proposal. Sorry, GitHub Externship. You can open that; it's a Markdown file. Uh, and or you can go to the discussion section of the Hoppscotch repository in GitHub. So there's a GitHub discussion section, and you should see a pinned discussion about GitHub Externship on the top itself of the list, and you can see there. In that, we have a proposal template, but we won't hit you hard for a wrong template or something. What we are trying to understand from your proposal is what is your plan, and have you thought out about it? That's kind of the one thing we want you to like. Okay, read the code base and give us a. It's not just like, okay, I want to build a feature A. It's that, how am I going to build a feature A? At least to a rough aspect. The more precise it is, the more confident we will be on you. So it is. So if you want to be successful in your proposal, I would suggest. Yeah, we have a template, but if you want to elaborate even more outside the template, please do. Yeah.
Yes, sure, that helps, does help. Now, since you have already answered what the scope of the project is, that is already been done. So, yeah, if you could just specify. So, let's say I'm a student and I wanted to submit a proposal, then I got to interact with you as a mentor, and I do know that you would be the one who would be assessing them. So, as a tip or as a guide, if you could just help me in a direction in which I could know that what is that one thing that you'd be looking forward to in the extensive proposal curated by me.
Yeah. So for an external proposal, we are looking is for a well thought out plan, right? So what are you going to be doing for 3 months, and how are you going to be doing it, and the implications of things, and how you're going to handle it is kind of the things we are going to be looking forward from a proposal. It's not just, hey, I want to work on some features or something. The more deep you can go on a proposal, the more steps you can say, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. We don't want it in a weekly basis or something like, week one we are going to be doing something this or that. It's not about that, because I think I know I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but we can kind of expect like what, because externship is not our first set of internships, so we have interns before. So we know kind of what we can expect from an individual working on a project, especially at this level. So as a student, we just want to see if what you're scoping is fine for your experience level with the project and in programming in general, and what kind of stuff you'll do, and the thought process you have put into making the proposal, because that's kind of something that I see is kind of lacking. I want more people to update their proposals and give a kind of a step-by-step breakdown of what they're planning to do. Yeah.
Yeah, then we have got one more question which says that if we have only the front end knowledge, can we apply to Hopscotch?
Sure. Just to specify, you are only good with front end. It is fine because Hopscotch is mostly the bulk of Hopscotch is still the front end. We are a collection of around 120 view components. So but whereas the backend is still really small, its backend is only like 3,000 lines of code. So whereas the front end is like 48,000 lines of code. And so if you are only good with experience with front end, that is fine. Yeah, it's not about like you're good at front end or back end. Just make sure you are not focusing on like a front, just a kind of like a back end level feature. Just make sure you're proposing something which is kind of a front end stuff. Yeah.
There's another question which asks that will the mock server be mainly deployed on Hopscotch web app or Chrome extension?
Depends. So as I said, so the mock server thingy, the mock server feature idea is completely vague for one reason. Is that because the we want the externship participants, the people who are putting forward the proposals itself to come up with the idea. Because one thing is, especially with mock server, there has been a lot of proposals for mock server, and all of them kind of come with different ideas of how a mock server should be done. And we'll be taking in the best ideas related to that. So it could be, depending on whose proposal is the best, it could be maybe on the web app or on the Chrome extension or whatever. It can vary, yeah. Because we haven't fixed down the detail yet, because we want you guys to help us fix on that detail.
So I'll just be taking a last question and then we'll be moving up ahead. So
Yeah, sure.
there's a question which says, I'm applying for implementing gRPC. Please talk about it specifically, how to implement it, and what is its scope in the future.
Okay. So gRPC, for the people who don't know, is it's a kind of a way. It's kind of like how REST APIs and sort of work, which also supports real time. So a way of building applications using binary data. So I think a lot of applications, really performance intensive applications, I think like Google Maps uses it, and apps kind of like uses it. And we have seen requests for gRPC support because Hoppscotch doesn't support gRPC right now. And the reason for that is gRPC is really difficult to implement as a browser-only app, and we have seen difficulties with that. And speaking about the scope, so as I said, we would love to see someone bringing in gRPC support because maybe you have a different idea from us. But if you're implementing gRPC, at the minimum we are expecting is something to the level of like a separate page in Hoppscotch for like we have for GraphQL and the real-time systems, a separate page in which users, this user flow basically take a request, build the request and run it and see the results. At least if you can actually build at least this experience over the 3 months, I think that can be gRPC can be that could be the scope. But if you want to aim higher, that's fine. If you but I think it could be depending on the level of the proposal. It could be it's moderate level difficulty, or it could be really ambitious for a 3-month proposal. So, but like just ping us on that on your proposal page. We will get back to you with that. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andrew, for all the words that you put in and all the advice that you had for the students who would be participating or are looking forward to Hopscotch to contribute later on. So thanks a lot. If you have do you have any final words to please put us so that we get to know and have an idea of how to contribute any tips or guides. And
Yeah.
once again, thanks a lot for joining.
Yeah, yeah. Last thing I say is yes, exactly. Is okay. We have a certain set of guidelines, yes, and we have some set of feature requests, but we want you guys. Don't think of anything as a small thing. I think in like a previous session, I think Anne from Koi has talked about like he just fixing a typo and he getting the GitHub award thingy for the March project. It's kind of like that, right? It's not about how small your contributions are. So Fixing bugs is not a small thing. Fixing or doing documentation is not a small thing. These are actually really integral parts, and we want people to have a focus on that as well. At the same time, when you're building out feature requests, if you guys have, I would say, before using your proposal, try using Hoppscotch for a day and see what you feel is lacking. And if you guys feel like you can make it better in some way, make that your proposal. If you being unique is the best way to stand out in your proposal. Yeah.
Yeah, so concluding with that, every little bit of contribution that you make onto open source does count somewhere or the other. So with that, thank you, Andrew, for joining in. It was great conversing with you. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you again later on.
Yeah. See
Thanks,
ya.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So this was Andrew Baston from Hoppscotch. Next up, we have Abhishek Palam and Gavin from Frappe. I'd just be calling them over. Before that, there are a couple of questions and just a reminder for the participants that please do complete your applications as soon as possible. The last date for the same is 21st. And remember, you are allowed to apply only one of the organizations, so please do select carefully. So with that, hi Gavin, hi Abhishek, how are you doing?
Hey Kaushik,
Uh, yeah,
Abhishek is on mute. Okay, by choice. Uh, so yeah, we're doing good.
yeah, thanks. So before we begin with Frappe, I just like both of you to explain what Frappe is all about and
Okay,
give a
just
brief.
before we go ahead, it's Frappe Technologies, it's not
Okay,
Frappe.
okay, sure. Apologies for that. So it's Frappe Technologies. Yeah. So before I'll just restart once again, erasing the part that I did a mistake on. So, hi, Kevin and Abhishek. If you could just throw some light on what Frappe Technologies is all about and a brief about yourself.
Uh, Hi, I'm Gavin from Frappe Technologies, and here's my colleague Abhishek. Uh, Abhishek is a DevOps engineer, and I'm primarily like Frappe frameworks maintainer, but I've been around like I'm an SRE DevOps building like every day. I'll give a brief introduction about a company. We don't have a presentation, but just take your show us just a minute. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, perfectly.
Oh, okay, cool. So we are Frappe Technology. Our company has been around for over a decade, and we have most of our products, everything we built over the years, are always like been around the open source. In the open source community, like if you see our the number of projects that we have, everything that we've built over the past decade, we have ERP Next, which is our our bread and butter flagship product. That's how everything started. Uh, it's a fully open source ERP software, and it's very easy to use, and that's how we started. And through that came spun up all our other projects over the years. So through ERP Next came out the Frappe framework. I think I'll go into that later. And all these other projects that you see here are just like products that spun out from this initial seed. And we've been like from day one, I think Frappe has been open source from the time we started ERP Next. And now this year, we are ERP Next is like a front runner in ERP solutions. I think it's rated one of the best in terms of UX. I'll I'd go more into the specifics of ERP next, but I think it would get a little too technical or business related. Like there's a lot of business related jargon, so might just skip over that. We'll be talking about Frappe framework because that's uh, that's the underlying framework that we use to build all our products, or at least most of them. And even for the GitHub Externship, if you check out like uh, guidelines before this that we posted, it will be building projects either on the Frappe framework or through it. So if you even want to contribute to ERP Next, you'd have to dabble along in Frappe because ERP Next is also written over Frappe framework. So just basic, the goal for the project is to be a low-code framework for writing real-world applications. And this could be like, this is all business centric actually. So it's supposed to enable you to write business applications really quickly. So it comes with a lot of, we say batteries included because it has a lot of things just right out of the box. Like this, we have a feature rich admin UI, which you get just when you create your first bench, which just install Frappe and you get that thing out of the box. You have list views, form views, everything is there. Even we have roles permissions, socket IO, email setup, even background jobs and job scheduling. All of those things come straight out of the box, right, when you install it. So I think the main drive for writing Frappe or even like building on Frappe right now is just to help the developer or like anyone actually build applications as fast as they can. And I think this is like a simple uh, model that we have to write any application in Frappe or to make a form. Actually, I think I'll just start with that. To make any simple form, all you have to do is go and fill in a form like over here. If you just fill in the fields like what you want, if you want like okay first name, second name, uh, and whatever details you want, and you can start manipulating them through just Python code, basic syntaxes, and I think we have a lot of Frappe sugar over everything. So this is just how simple it can be to write a small application or a small to-do app and to track your progresses throughout. And even we have a GitHub Externship uh, web page that we had made a web form for this. Even this thing was built like the same way, and we got this page up and running in like less than 15 minutes. This is complete end to end from the time like you fill in records, you add your attachments. From the time you hit submit, Abhishek and I get an email saying that hey, this uh, someone has applied and they are interested in this project. And at the end of the day, we've also set up a report system which uh, tells us how many people, like gives us statistics of the day, how many students have applied and for which projects and all that. And all of this is just through basic configuration. We've not had to write any code for this. Okay, this goes a little ahead. So that's just the basics of building applications. We want users to be able to build applications without writing any code. So at this point, that we haven't realized that completely. We haven't reached there yet, but it's still like pretty low code. So we're trying to be a low code framework. Uh, okay, I think I'll go further ahead. So I'll just stay at like an organizational level right now. If you go to Frappe over here, we have like 100 public repositories, and most of these are still like okay, all of them are not active, but a majority of them, if you just go around scrolling down, are still like active projects. We have a charts project, which is like a zero dependency SVG charts because you while building business apps and all, or you need a lot of charts and yeah, you want to visualize your data, anything. So we weren't getting a lot of open source chart solutions out, uh, which actually met our needs. So went ahead and we built this one, and I think this is the highest starred repo under Frappe right now. Then comes ERP next, which is I think the highest, like the most impactful project in our organization right now. This is our flagship product actually, and in Frappe right now in our company we have about 35, 40 devs, and most of them are like actively working on ERP Next right now. And ERP Next is more of a, I think it's many projects soon into one. And to get that to run, we have Frappe, which is a monolithic framework, and it has things that you wouldn't actually expect web frameworks to come out with. You things that you would think are more advanced and should come out as extensions and all. You get all those things out of the box, so you don't have to bother setting it up whenever a requirement changes or new things come up. And for GitHub Externship, like Abhishek and I will be the mentors. So I think we are keeping our scope like much smaller in this case. We've given a list like of Frappe apps that could be built, like possible projects. And there are some things that we think that intern would take like trouble getting into, like some projects like maybe ERP Next, for instance. This thing requires a lot of business logic, business know-hows and all to actually sensibly start to contribute to it. You need a lot of background in this case. But Frappe is relatively easier and much smaller code base. So yeah, most of your contributions would be around Frappe and building Frappe apps on this.
Yes, also about scope, the applications or all the features that will be going into the product or the application that we made. So we actually want to use them. So like our entire the entire stack was built like with the same mentality that we should also use the products that we make. Like Rushabh, our founder, he wanted an ERP for himself and for his family business, and then he started making it. And like that's what became ERP Next today. And then while building ERP Next, then we figured out that it should be more easy to develop more features. So that's when the low code framework came in. So that there is continuity and this connection between everything. So all the projects that will be done, and like I hope the students are not restricting themselves to just these four ideas, or you can come out with more. And all of these, like once you put it out, right, there are like quite literally hundreds of self-hosted users, right? They'll just want to use your application. So the impact is like quite vast. And yeah, I mean, I think we can start talking about the projects at this point, Gavin.
Yeah. So I think right now, if you go to our form that I just showed you earlier, there are 3 active projects that we are looking for people to work on. One is the password manager app. Second, there is this web analytics tool that we want, and third is uh, going to be a Frappe core feature, which is going to be system usage and site analytics. So that's different from website analytics, but yeah. So we have 3 projects that we're outlining right now, and like students can obviously like they can put in their own, and yeah, like just propose your own if you all want to do something outside the box. And maybe I'll reiterate something what Andrew said in the previous presentation, that if you use any software for a day or two, you will be able to pick out gaps from it, or you'll have your own opinion about maybe how something should function or how it should be better, how it could be better. So when I say propose your own, yeah, I mean something like that. Either it could be that, or it could be something that would fix a particular problem that you've noticed that exists in our ecosystem.
Yes. And this is like actually quite ingrained in our culture too, because we ourselves are looking, we are our own bug testers sort of. So we are always looking for, little bit things to add, and, we encourage this. And like the response that we've been getting from students is great. We actually have a student who's like pushed a feature, real-time charts. I know it's quite encouraging to see this. And yeah, I mean, about the projects, right? So web analytics. So we want to replace Google Analytics for all our company usage, right? So we don't because Google tracks you mercilessly across sites, even if like tell it not to with the do not track option in your browser. So like we move to another open source app, but eventually we want to build something of our own. So the scope of the project is something like very like exactly that that product should work exactly to our requirements, equivalent to Google Analytics, and it will be actually used. So you'll have that feedback, what all features are actually useful and what are not. and what all bugs can come out of it. And the other one is password manager. So we also want to use this. Like we have an internal password manager, but it is like customizable. Since Frappe is quite customizable, we could just make it very easy. But it's like not again a separate app that everybody else can use. So this is something that we want to add. So the way Frappe works is, along with Frappe, you can install multiple apps and they'll work seamlessly together. Like you can have ERP Next running with a password manager. You can have ERP Next running with a web analytics tool. So like that, like if even if you have more option like ideas like of different apps that will be useful to businesses, because that's who we are kind of catering to at this point. So we could go ahead and do it. Like yeah, and in that too, like the entire process of development will have to like match the standards that are there at Frappe. And I would encourage all students to go ahead and look at the open PRs on Frappe repository, Archinext repository, and bench. See how the test cases are run, how what kind of review happens, and what all different steps are there. And like I think students will benefit greatly from this, because at a college level, like you can figure out how to write code, right? And you can figure out how to use libraries, and you can make things. But there has to be like a standardized and way of doing things, and then quality also has to be like taken care of at every step. So that is, I think, the biggest value the students can get out of it. And apart from these projects, so we don't want to limit anybody. So even if you complete this if you pick a project and you complete it, let's say in the first month, it's fine. We have plenty more for you to do. And obviously we have plans for offering internships or like job offers after this, and we actually are actively hiring. So we are quite excited to see the students who will be applying for this. And yeah, I mean, yeah, this is the gist of what our expectations are. And we're very open to any doubts or ideas that the students or the like incubating team has. So,
Yes, yeah. Before we move on to the queries from the students, as a generic part of the question, which all of them have a doubt about, so they have known what the project of Frappe is all about. Now, what they want to know is that once they are going to submit the proposal, so what should be there in the proposal? Let's say I'm a student and I have done certain projects. Shall I mention them which are related to the similar tech stack, or shall I go the ideal way wherein I check an issue which is a good first issue. I try to get it assigned to me and generate a pull request. So which way should I go to first, and then when I'm submitting the proposal, what should be the contents of the proposal ideally, and what you're looking forward to be in the proposal?
so so for this, right? If you're not comfortable with coming up with a proposal, so we have, if you like look at the issue list in Frappe in GitHub repository, we've added a tag for GitHub Externship. So these are small issues that you can pick out and solve, like with the basic knowledge that we are expecting students to have. So that is like a good way to test out the waters, like see how, if you can do this, and if you are confident, or even if you have doubts, you can ask us. We are like quite open to answering them. And more importantly, about the proposal. So yes, for proposal, we do not want stuff like like I will be very helpful, I'll be extremely dedicated, and so what's like that. What we want are ideas, or what we want are actually like plans or strategy, like how I want to do this, or these are the things that I want in this thing. And even if you like and we don't want to keep a structure around it that you should have all these 4 points, because like we believe in the creative process. So like we are open to it, but at the same time, like when you make sure that it's not like like uh, like it's not superficial. Try to have some depth in your proposal. And and while the proposal is important, but the real thing is the interviews that we'll be having later on. That's when we'll evaluate the students. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we want to actually figure out is that a student really believes in what they are telling and knows what they are talking about. Basically, like we want to have the confidence on a particular student that they can execute something. So to them, they can use whatever means necessary. I think we have a list of GitHub issues that we've labeled over there as GitHub Externship. Those are good first issues, easy to fix actually without knowing much about the product itself. So that could be one starting point. Another could be maybe if they start with the problem at hand itself and start breaking it down to, I think, bite-sized chunks on their own. So even that is, I think, a good, even that would make us confident on them. if they can plan this thing properly, or then can gauge the complexity of the project itself. And in the end, we won't have a very tight grip on them, even about how the project should be, because we want them to be able to drive the project themselves in the end. Like uh, everyone just has ideas. If it's good or bad, I think we can discuss them out. Like if they have better ideas than we do about how a certain problem should be solved, then we are all yours. Like you can drive everything however you want, and that's how we work at Frappe. Also, we are like a democratic organization, and yeah, that's how we want all processes to be. And primarily, we are trying to hire people, even through this thing. So the better they fit in with the organization culture and values, the better even for all of us.
Yeah. And one more thing, so like even if at Frappe, especially even if you'll be hired as a developer, right? So there is like quite a lot of scope for you to experiment out in other things. Like for example, I've worked in like different teams. I've worked in the Yapnex project. I worked in like delivery team. I worked in like now I'm in the DevOps SRE team. So like that, like if you don't know what you want to do, right, just start with like, with a developer this thing, and you can. That's what we want to like. That's why we are hiring them, right? So that's what.
Yes, sure.
Something.
That does help in getting the knowledge of what the proposal should be. Yeah, Kevin, you were saying something. If you
Yeah,
could
okay.
just
Something unrelated actually to the question that you asked. There's like one plus point, to working in Frappe is that your whatever projects you have, whatever products that you build out of this, they will be used by non-developers primarily. It's end users or like business users who only care about if this thing works and how easy it is to actually use it. So you get more honest and blunt feedback about things, and I think then reality hits you directly. It's not that you're talking to people and you're entangled in this maze of complexity when things have to just uh, they have to be simplified. Like you're trying to simplify things, and sometimes if you're in small developer groups or in like large developer communities, that difference is not very apparent at the start. But when someone from the outside comes and tells you like this isn't working for me, and this thing should probably be easier, you get like a reality check at times. Yeah, that's
yes, yeah. That was a bit of a great ideas on how the proposal should be and what a quick description of about the projects and what you look forward to in the next couple of months, as well as the opportunities post the externship. With this, I'd like to take a few questions from the audience, which are already over there. So Varun is asking, what would we in turn be working on, and how one should start small contribution to Frappe community, which are welcome.
Yeah, you can start with the solving issues on Frappe repository. There's a tag called GitHub Externship. You could start with them, or if you think that like they are, or you could look for something else, like something much more simpler if you can figure out, or if you've never raised a PR before, you could like correct something in the documentation, just to see like how the workflow is. And once that happens, like once you build that confidence, right, then like you can start out experimenting with the like the local devs are like it's like the project and setting up everything and finding it. So yeah, and what would the intern be working on? I think we covered this. Like there'll be different types of project. Either that'll be a feature in Frappe or a completely separate app that like that'll be released to the this thing, and it will also be used by ourselves and our customers. So,
Yes, sir. Moving on to the next question, we have. I have a good knowledge on Python and I'm enthusiastic in learning other technologies too. Can I put my proposal to Frappe?
Yeah, sure, shit, you can. Like
yeah.
all you need to know to get started with Frappe is just Python and jQuery or JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript. Everything is built from the ground up, and yeah, that's all you need to get started. And you can choose, how complex your tasks should be or how deep you want to get inside. So I think just to get started, you don't need much. Just a day or two of looking at the code base, I think you'll be able to contribute enough. Like if you go deeper inside, there are like the tech stack is pretty huge actually. Apart from just JavaScript and Python, we have then Redis, which is used for caching and queuing, and even for real-time connections, chat relays, and all. And then we have either Postgres or MariaDB databases as the backend. And from there, then I think complexity just goes on increasing the deeper you go inside. The types of technologies you'll have to interact, but just to get started, you don't have to worry about all this.
So the developer
Yeah.
experience is like quite good in Frappe. So like all you have to actually know is like basics of SQL and how to use an order Python and jQuery. That's you don't even have to use HTML as much because the components are already there. But then again, like you can develop that going forward and contribute like much deeper.
Yes, sure. That does help a lot. So, with this, I do have one last question of my own, which usually the students are having, is that since due to pandemic, the entire education system has shifted to the work from home and virtual learning. So, how much do you think that the effort would be required from the students in, I'd say, per hour basis for a week, every week in the internship period? What would be the duration that they would be asked to devote, or what is the actual in a generic way, what would be the time that they would be required to devote over there?
So even with like employees right now at Frappe, so we don't have fixed work times. You can work whenever you want to, how much ever you want to. It's the output that matters, right? I mean, if you complete like a project, in 1 hour versus 6 hours, how does it matter? It's the same. So we do have a little bit high expectations of output and quality that like the interns have to stand up to. But at the same time, you also understand like there's you have to manage your other studies and things like that. So we can come to a like an understanding on what all like or how much you'll be working, because we actually have interns like who are working on very critical projects, and they are like they just started a month or two back, and they're able to manage with their studies. So that's not going to be a problem, and we don't want to put a number like we work 4 hours a day, because like we don't expect it. Okay, so like if you complete the 3 month project in like a week, fine with us. Like you will have more things to give. So, or like if it takes more time, that's also fine. Like, but at the same time, the project should have a logical conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean,
So one.
Abhishek, you were saying something.
Gavin, do you have anything to add to this?
Oh, my bad. No, it's just that. Like as Abhishek said, we have college students right now who are working as interns, and even one now who's joined as a full-time developer. So okay, I'm not expecting that much, output from anyone, but the timings are completely like up to you. However you want to work, I think before we get started, we are going to sort that thing out. But I think on an average, it would be like at least 2-3 hours of work in a day, at least. And all of us have been working remote first, even like before the pandemic hit. So I think we have experience working in that environment anyway, and I think we'd be able to onboard even a new interns like in the same.
Yeah, before we wrap up, one last question from a student was asking that, can you say something more about password manager and web framework projects? Which language we use in that?
No. So password manager, we wanted to work exactly like how LastPass or something like that would work, right? So a company, right? When you have a company, you also have a lot of these assets, right? It can be something like an account, AWS account, or it could also be something like server credentials. So all of these details, they need to be stored someplace secure, and like why not store it along with the ERP, like your ERP? Right? So that is the idea. So the features that we're expecting out of it is something that's similar to LastPass or Dashlane, whatever there is there in the market. So that is the scope, and like all, and we can obviously filter out some features or add more according to what we decide later on. But the goal is to have that like to store your credentials and things like that very securely in an encrypted manner in a database. The thing about this is like the password manager project, we already have Frappe, since it's so extensive, we already have encryption, two encryption built in. So it's like a matter of using a function. But the real challenge will be the functionality and the workflow, how the details will be stored, and how all the data will be organized. So this is with respect to the password manager. Web analytics, again, like say, like how Google Analytics works, right? It gives you a tracking code that you put it into a website, and like then it tracks the number of visitors that you have, because you also add JavaScript there. So this is something similar that we are expecting, like so that we can replace Google Analytics right now. We are using right now Matomo, so you can like, explore both of these, and you can explore the features in these. Since Google Analytics is quite vast, but we can obviously pick and choose. So yeah, so it should work like this. So if I add a site there, let's say like GitHub.com, then it could give me like a tracking code and a JavaScript file that I can add it, like header that I can add in the head, this thing in HTML. After that, like I should be able to see all the data, the different types of data that I can, like all the visits, repeated visits, the unique visitors, and and some data like that. At the same time, we also don't want it to be too intrusive. Like if the browser has a do not track option enabled, then we should not track it. And so you have to build a balance between usable website usage analytics, and at the same time protecting the user's privacy. That is the scope of this. So yeah, just like so I've given the examples of what we want exactly. So you can go through that, right? I mean, password managers, LastPass, Fastway, and something like that. Or you could go through Matomo is an open source tool that we are temporarily using right now, and Google Analytics, right? You can explore more. So once you have one idea of the feature set, then you can talk about extension there.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Abhishek and Gavin, for joining in. If you do have some last words or words of advice, do please throw them at the students so that they can grab at them and just utilize the opportunity that you are providing as an organization over here in GitHub Externship. So, thank you. Thanks a lot once again. Over to you if do you have a few last words.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kaushik, for having us. I'll just close with this thing that whenever you drop your proposal or whenever you're starting with a new project or thinking about contributing to one of us or anyone's for that matter, think about user experience for starters. I think that will help you shape your entire project. Like you don't want to build something that's unusable or like too hard to use, because that will be a bit, you'll get a big L on customer satisfaction, or just people wanting to use your product to begin with. So yeah, when you're designing your proposals or designing your solutions for your proposals, just make sure to keep that in mind. Like I think Abhishek touched upon the technicalities of how these products should work, but there's another part to it that when you're building the password manager, it has to be easily accessible to everyone who needs to have access to it. Like you don't so work from that perspective, I think, primarily, because there are many products that provide these things to begin with, but what sets them apart is their usability and uh, yeah, just that, I think, just how easy it is to use things. Yeah.
Also, like I mean, I think students will quite enjoy working with us. Like we have, we're a very relaxed team. At the same time, we want like really smart people with us, like who are like really smart and hustlers. People are hustlers, and if you're one of those people, right, you'll have a lot of fun here. You can do the scope of the things that you'll be doing are quite vast. You'll have like and the team is very good that you'll help that will be helping you out, and you'll get a lot of good guidance, like even from different teams. Like I mean, not just from the both of us. We could obviously consult the other teammates, and yeah. So that is it. Yeah, I mean, you'll have a lot of fun. I think because there is a lot of technical depth in the projects. At the same time, like there's a lot of creativity. How the workflow should be, and this and like you'll also learn how the standard practices are. Like how code contribution guidelines and things like that, which I think quite is something that's not taught in college. So yeah. And yeah, I mean, yeah, join us for work, man. After if your externship is complete, right? I mean, we're more than happy to hire you.
So with that closing note that you do have an opportunity of joining Frappe as a full-time employee. So we'll just take a due. So thank you, Gavin. Thanks, Abhishek, for joining in.
Thank you, Kaushik.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So we had with us Gavin and Abhishek from Frappe Technologies. Tomorrow we will be joined by three organizations, that is Lovrise, Wonderland Hubs, and Herald Logics. As well as as I'll be leaving right now, a few words from my side. Applications are closing on 21st. This Do submit your proposals as soon as possible. If you have got any queries related to any organization, or if you have any direct questions to us, please do put them on the Slack. Each and every one from our organizing team as well as the organizing mentors are active over there. So please feel free to ask your queries as soon as possible. So with this, we would also be putting up a guideline for the proposal by tomorrow. So do keep looking for that. Thanks everyone. Thanks a lot. See you tomorrow again, once again. Thank you.